COVID is the big hit. To reduce the number, over the past 3 years, we see there's virtually no tourists to Australia from China. Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah. We should really be concerned, but we could really analyze the situation now. China has been open to 20 countries over the world, but Australia is not included in the list. What I can see is there's a diplomacy tool China is using to exercise the tourism side. I think Australia can be ready to receive more Chinese tourists. This is the time for us to grab more Chinese tourists. I think there will be more
Sam,
coming over.
How concerned should we be that Australia isn't on the approved list of group travellers outbound from China?
I think we should be concerned reasonably, but not over-concerned. I think it's reasonable to see the Chinese government exercise a kind of diplomacy. I examined the 20 countries. Australia is not in the list, but New Zealand is among the countries.
So what does that say? What does that say about how China regards Australia?
I think they may be related to mandatory testing requested by Australian authorities upon Chinese tourists coming into Australia. I don't know whether this is still ongoing or it's already gone, but this is something the Chinese authority may be concerned. If you look at Japan and South Korea, these two countries imposed a similar type of measure against Chinese tourists, and then the Chinese authority implemented this countermeasure, if I can say, using that term. That's why we don't see Australia is back in the list.
So what are the forecasts now for visitors from China over the next 10 years?
Well, 10 years is probably too long as a time frame to forecast. But we probably can see over the short term, in the short term, in 1 or 2 years' time, we probably won't be able to come back comparing to the pre-COVID level. If you look at the figures of pre-COVID, we have 1.4 million visitor arrivals from China in 2019. This is it's hardly we can get the figure in a couple of years' time, but we can prepare for that. I see in the long term, probably a lot of variables can be there to determine Chinese tourist arrivals to Australia.
How worried are Australian businesses about the current climate, and what are they doing to woo more Chinese visitors?
I think we can apply both short-term strategies and long-term strategies. For short-term strategies, I think it's critical we rebuild our capacity. It's my understanding that over the past 3 years, the industry has been damaged to a certain degree. We probably are lacking the necessary tourism personnel in the industry. Most relevant would be Chinese tour guides. If we don't have Chinese tour guides to receive the group of tourists, we can't really, even though there are a number of tour groups coming over, we can't really receive. Well, because it's my observation that for some tour operators, they lose their staff. It's hard to rebuild the staff force in a short term. That's why I see probably in the short term, we need to rebuild the capacity. In the long term, Yes.
Yeah, do you think they need to target more visitors from other emerging travel markets in the region, perhaps?
Well, we could look beyond the China market. We could really look at the Indian market, but we can't really compare the Indian market with the Chinese market. If you look at the pre-COVID figure, it's non-comparable. The Chinese market is so huge. What's so huge? It's probably about 15% of our international visitor arrivals of the total market, and the spending. I mean, the tourism earning from Australia regarding the Chinese inbound tourists is probably 26% of our total earnings, total international tourism earnings. That's why it's very hard to find a replacement market. But of course, we can think about some alternative market like India. India will be the world's most populous country in a couple of months' time, according to some forecasts.
And going the other way, when can Australians visit China for holidays again? At the moment, travel there is restricted.
I think pretty soon, in a few months' time, I think we are able to travel to China. The things are evolving very quickly. Just a few weeks' time, you could see a completely different situation, including the COVID infections in China. So I'm pretty confident that in a few months' time, we'll be able to travel to China.
Sam Huang, good to talk. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. My pleasure.